Doctor Who? That's the question that I've been asking myself while Science and I have been watching Series 12 of Doctor Who, and we haven't even gotten to the mess of the Timeless Child yet. This isn't the same show that I've been watching and enjoying since it came back in 2005. I know Doctor Who purists had problems with the soft reboot that Russell T Davies spearheaded back in the day, but I think in general, the purists came around and really enjoyed modern Who. Both Russell T Davies and later Stephen Moffat brought something new and exciting to the stories that they were trying to tell. They had vision and were able to move the story of the Doctor forward. That was until we got to number 13. Or who knows anymore what number we're at, because the new showrunner, Chris Chibnall, introduced elements to the Doctor's lore that actually detracted from everything that came before. Everything we knew and loved about who the Doctor was got thrown out the Tardis during this run. Science and I are almost done watching season 12, and it has failed to deliver in so many ways. It's like when you're about to sneeze, then the sneeze goes away, and 2 seconds later, you forget that you're going to sneeze. That's what it's been like watching the show. There's a lot of potential in the ideas behind the stories, but poor writing and a lack of any sort of vision for who the Doctor is or where the Doctor has come from ultimately ruins any sort of hope the story had for a satisfying payoff. There is one episode in particular that had a glimmer of hope, and in case you haven't seen it yet, I won't spoil it for you, other than to say it was well written and had an intriguing plot. It also had elements of Stephen Moffat era Who. However, because of the way they set the story up in a previous episode, I know that ultimately, in a future episode, the payoff will destroy all that was good about this episode. And I know we're about 2 years behind watching these episodes, but it has taken me and Science this long to stomach the series. Both Science and I have seen spoilers online about future episodes. We just want to get through Series 12 and then through Flux so we can watch the power of the Doctor to see who or what the Doctor regenerates into. So we're keeping an open mind about the remaining episodes, but there comes a point when you get tired of being hit over the head with obvious references to inequality and the ills of modern society. That's what was so great about older science fiction. The writers were intelligent enough to tackle sensitive social issues of the day in a way that you didn't feel like you were being lectured to. They would often use alien civilizations to talk about these issues, and it was done in a smart and well thought out way that kept the viewers engaged. That's why shows like Star Trek and Star Wars have lasted so long, and why the studios are trying so desperately to recreate the excitement that the properties once had. I believe that if Chibnall's Doctor was the first time we ever met Doctor Who, or if in Star Trek Discovery was the first Star Trek series, I don't think either show would have enough momentum to get as far as they have. It's like the cars of today versus the classic cars of the 50s and 60s. These classic cars are very sought after vehicles, but nobody 30 years from now is going to want to restore an old Toyota Camry. They are just garbage in comparison. Audiences will remember William Shatner's Kirk from the original series being this iconic character, not this imposter Kirk from Strange New Worlds. Nobody will know who this guy is 30 years from now. Who is this guy? Turns out his name is Paul Wesley. I had to Google his name while writing this episode. That's how memorable his screen presence is on Star Trek. I'm sure he's a fine actor, and he's probably doing the best that he can with what he's given, but he's not been given much to work with. Same with Jodie as the Doctor. And again, I think she's doing the best with what she's been given, but she hasn't been given much. Science and I were really looking forward to seeing Jodie play the Doctor and see her take on it, because we really enjoyed her in Broadchurch. And it's unfortunate because I think she could have made a really good Doctor. But without the legacy of these shows, these current shows have no substance. And ironically, it's the legacy that these studios and writers are trying to change. As fans, we like the shows for a reason, the good and the bad. Times change, social norms also change, but that shouldn't take away from what made the shows great to begin with. And that brings up another thought. These movies and TV shows are referred to as franchises and properties by the studios. By calling them franchises and properties, it reduces them to the lowest common denominator: money. That's all they are to these studios, a money-making workhorse. It doesn't matter if they're good or not, they know people will watch them and talk about them, good or bad. Even the BBC has signed a contract with Disney to produce and distribute the next era of Doctor Who. If Star Wars and Marvel are any indication as to the direction that Disney will push Doctor Who, we may never see our Doctor again. I know this episode was a little different than what we usually do with our videos and podcasts, but it's something that I had to say because I think it ties into the greater world around us. We live in this world, simulated or otherwise, where there are forces at play manipulating and changing our perceptions to suit their agenda. It's not what's good for the audience or the public, but what's good for their bottom line. Whether it's a movie studio or our local or federal governments, we have to keep asking questions and holding those in power accountable. When it comes down to it, Chris Chibnall is in some ways no different than our local politicians. So if you don't like something, do something about it. And just because they seem to have some power over our lives, they don't. The future might be determined, but it's our choices that we make throughout our lives that determine our outcomes of all our future decisions. I'm opening the floor up to you guys. What do you guys think? Was this me just ranting, or do you guys feel the same way? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked the video, it would be awesome if you could subscribe, and thanks to everyone who already has subscribed. We try to release a new video every Monday or Tuesday, and our podcast goes up every Friday afternoon. Anyway, that's it for today. Remember, being paranoid is smart, and we'll see you next time. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy Over Coffee was produced by Lethologica. Research and writing was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.